reasons. I mean, we've talked about this, that often I date younger men.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is because...
Let's stop on that, folks.
Oh my God, we had a great dinner. We had a great dinner, by the way, where across the table, your husband goes, "But why?" And I said, "Well, maybe because I can."
Yes. This is what I'm saying. Tales from Tracy's.
It's fun. It's really fun to share.
Tracy tale.
But
you date a younger woman.
But one of the reasons, though, that because I had to ask myself that question, I was like, "What is this about?"
Yeah.
Because I want a partner, and so often, and it's not just that I'm older. I'm also very embodied. I am a full, very whole person who knows myself, who is in charge of my life, and who lives a very full, just robust life. So it's not just age, it's like life experience and sort of a difference. But I had to ask myself the question, why? Why does this keep sort of coming up other than they're hot and gorgeous?
There's that.
But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks. And anything that starts to smell of that for me, I did enough of it where I was controlled and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize and I have no interest in it, and I will not do it.
Things you should know in your early 20s. Part 1, you're not mature for your age. He's just a predator. Also, divulging your past traumas to him isn't going to make him care about you more. It's going to give him ammo on how to further manipulate you.
I hate to get into the, rubber glue argument and shit along gender lines. I really do. We do that shit every day. That's all we do and shit. We try to, talk about these issues, these interpersonal issues between us and shit. Black men and presumably black women. Not our women, but just black women, their own separate fucking race and shit, according to them. All right? Because reasons. All right, so I'll start. I'm not doing a rubber glue thing. You know what I'm. You know. But I want to say, Tracy Ellis Ross saying what she's saying doesn't make her a predator. Doesn't make her a predator. She likes to eat chicken and shit, as they say. Quotation marks instead of you know. Maybe that's some shit from my generation. A lot of hillbillies and pedos. They refer to them kids they prey on as chicken, right? That used to be a thing back in the day, like the 80s shit. Maybe there's some of this other weird shit, some Epstein shit. Not going there, okay? But Tracy Ellis Ross casually talked about, that she dates younger guys most of the time and shit. Yeah, she dates younger guys most of the time. And Michelle Obama was big up in that shit with like that weird looking. It's kind of like a smile, but it's really like she's grimacing. You really can't tell what she's thinking and shit. But you always, when I see Michelle Obama, I always wonder why she's so fucking angry. Not so much masculine, but why she just has this angry aura about herself and shit when she had the most privileged chair in the land and shit. Okay, as the first lady. She has no fucking grace whatsoever. And every year she loses a little bit more of her supposed mystique and shit. Not for black women so much. They seem to like her angry, nasty demeanor and shit. I wouldn't even say entitled and shit. She's beyond entitled if you watch any bit of her podcast, so far. And I don't know what to make of that brother and shit because he's like zesty and, just kind of gay and shit, And I know he's some kind of coach or something. I really don't give a fuck, man. I wish these motherfuckers would be honest with the public and shit and see how many followers they have and shit. That she's a bitch, okay, and that he's gay and shit. And, as far as Tracy Ellis Ross goes and her talking about dating younger guys, they're only dating you because you're Tracy Ellis Ross. You're that. Well, not even, with a guy she's probably dating. Don't even give a fuck that she's Diana Ross's daughter and shit. Biracial daughter, by the way. She explains her goofy looks and shit. She's like half small hat and everything. But like the real reason those young guys are coming at you is because you were on a TV show, you're a celebrity, and you have a big, beautiful ass. And that's the only reason any young guy YN as they like to call them. I think it's a derogatory term and shit. That's the only reason any young YN wanna mess with you and shit. I would mess with your ass. I always wanted to mess with your own girlfriends. I always felt, honestly, talking to you kings out there, and that show Girlfriends was irredeemable. None of the women had any redeeming qualities whatsoever. It was just a salty, tea-filled show and shit. And I feel like Tracy Ellis Ross purposely cast women that didn't measure up to her physically so that she would stand out and shit. She had this big old, when I see Tracy Ellis Ross, I just want to see her from the back. I want to see her walking away. I don't even want to see her face leaves much to be desired. She obviously has her mother's eyes, but it kind of takes out. She has like a googly looking face, and I just imagine being a man of privilege or YN myself. If I was that age with somebody she would come up to, I would just be passing time, like sneaking peeks at my phone and watch until she bent over and shit, until I got the sheets. Then I wouldn't go out with her. I'd make her pay. If it was a premium YN, y'all make sure she pay. Make her pay you. Okay, that's what these women always talking about and shit. Do I have to say drizzle drizzle or quote that Shira 7 Bowser looking motherfucker that gives women bad news every day and there's no accountability? Shira 7 is like the Umar Johnson of, Miss Sandra's black women and shit. No fucking accountability. When she married to an old crusty dude too. Does make any of these women that chase these old dudes, these men that they're living off their pension and retirement and shit and savings. Does that make them any less of a predator than a guy that wants to older man that wants to bang some chick in her 20s that needs money for college and books and shit? It's quite expensive and doesn't want to have an OnlyFans page. She rather have a discreet arrangement with these men and shit. That's called modern feminism, modern intersectional feminism. My brother's keeper, my sister's keeper and shit. I keep her in my bedroom and shit until she finished in there. Then she do the walk of shame and go back to the dorm. Okay? I'm not saying that I have any kind of arrangement or would seek that kind of arrangement. Personally, myself, I would be a bit disgusted to have a sugar baby arrangement and shit. And I actually consider making a commentary about the sugar baby thing, and I may do so in a fairly upcoming and shit. I may do an episode about that because I did pull information for that, and I opened a sugar baby account just to do research and shit, and I put in a general, description just to see what would come up to me. You'd be amazed at the fucked up women that come my way and shit with no picture, no nothing on that sugar baby account. All right, now getting back to Tracy Ellis Ross, the only reason anyone ever wants to fuck with you is because you have a very nice figure, but you have a face that needs at least 2 bags. I call that a 2-bagger. And when I say that shit, jokingly enough, even though I'm not laughing, when you call somebody a 2-bagger, that's a really bad version of a butterface. Right? Everything but her face, just to be clear. That's when you put a bag on her fucking head before you hit, and you put one on your head too. You just knock that shit out the park. Okay? I watched Girlfriends. The times I watched her sitcom was because I got to see her ass in a pencil skirt and shit. And she wore a shitload of those pencil skirts, and had the dude that might be closeted, her co-star, slap on her butt. You know when she let no street guy slap on her ass? Okay, she wouldn't let 50 Cent get a piece of that ass. Okay? Well, maybe she would and shit. But, what can I say? Her mother's a Diana Ross and shit. Industry 304 and a divester, I guess. I really don't consider, like, Diana Ross for me is a phenomenal talent, but visually speaking, not something in my sexual, bucket list. I wouldn't hit that shit. I can see the real her beyond everything that she's ever done in her career, but I recognize her talent and shit. Her daughter, not so much. The only thing I recognize her daughter for is having a big ass, okay? It's your booty, okay? It's your booty, it's not your face. If Michelle Obama is fucked up and she would have to pay me some big time money, I'm talking about at least 6 figures and shit before I really tap that shit, even at the age I am, non-select as I am, and have grown up to be and shit, with a surprising body count. Yeah, I wouldn't hit. Who would hit Michelle Obama and shit? Who would clap her cheeks? Not many people without financial reciprocity and shit. Drizzle, drizzle. Okay? Well, Michelle Obama's gross and shit. And then, like when I looked at her and you think about being a YN and shit, a premium YN that she would actually pay for. You know, I'd be worried that her brother's gonna slide in and shit. Cause it's like this the relationship is real creepy and shit. Okay? I know you have a good relationship and everything is familiar. I have to look at things in the shades of mores that I look at and shit because it's the things that I've experienced in, you know, my travels and everything in my life, you know, some of the downfalls and, you know, weird shit that happened in my life. But just don't, I have a mistrusting side eye and shit. It's the reason I have those 3 rules. The first being keep your head on swivel because you better watch out. You be hitting Michelle and then the dude gonna come in right behind you. And they have a weird relationship. I made a commentary about how they were discussing how they approached her husband, Obama, you know, declaring, you know, telling her he wanted to run for presidency. Shit, they made a whole involved thing and shit. I'm like, it's one man's destiny, you fuckwits. Okay? And now you see, post the presidency, and she can't get any more. And she got everything she didn't get out of her, you know, makes us husband. And now she's angry and shit. You know, maybe she feel like her best years are behind her and shit. She could have had, you know, male concubines and shit or whatever the fuck they call them. I think Dr. T. Hassan Johnson called them concuserves or something. She could have had that shit. We don't know that she made she have a young YN of her own and shit hidden away. And he just hitting that shit because it's her. You know, he don't want to look at her fucking face. You imagine that? Can you imagine dealing with Michelle Obama after she had been in the White House for 8 years? You know, and just the angry, disparaging look on her face and some of the most horrific, you know, pseudo-feminist, misandrous bullshit we heard come out of her mouth and shit, especially during the last presidential election when she knew that the woman she was stumping for was a 304, unqualified to sit in the highest chair in the land, but she still, you know, displayed that malfeasant, you know, behavior, you know. All right? Political malpractice and shit she was endorsing. They were talking about women's issues and shit. She has a podcast, and we have to see her sit up here with Tracy Ellis Ross and listen and big up her talking about she mostly messes around with YNs and shit. I saw her fucking face. And she want to be, she wish she had Tracy Ellis Ross's body. Nobody wants her face. I don't want her face either. I'm telling you. You know, if I got an opportunity to hit Tracy Ellis Ross in the past or anytime, like if the genie came out and said I could hit that shit, I'll beat that shit up, man. But I just don't want to look at her face, man. This is the male gaze, unbridled. Right? It's a safe place for the black men and shit. Any women happen to come across this deal with, you know, it's all straight black men talking to each other and shit. And, you know, no one's going to come in here and try to son us or tone police or anything. Right? Just being honest. You know, I'm too old to lie, motherfucker. Right? I would knock that shit out. Okay? I ain't gonna lie. Knock the bottom out of the drawers if it's humanly possible. You know? And take some, I would take some stimulant, you know, juice up on stimulus and knock this shit off. And I would never want to see her face doing that the whole ordeal. Because I don't think she's attractive. I don't find her attractive. Okay? When I look at her, I see the top half of her head looks like her mom and the lower half looks like her dad and shit. She looks like a goofy ass chick that's really milk toast and dry. I'm like, what could we possibly have to talk about other than me getting some of that ass? Like, what does Tracy Ellis Ross really have in common with anyone and shit, given her pedigree, her background, her privileged background and shit, and the fact that she just had a, you know, popped up out of nowhere with her own sitcom and shit, and she cast lesser stature women, smaller, thinner women, so that her curves will pop even more on the screen, and a weird looking, you know, I guess straight man and shit, but a kind of over the hill, wall hitting motherfucker is the male co-lead and shit on that Girlfriend show. Can you imagine what she's like in real life? She's been posting a lot of thirst traps in the last 3 years, man. I enjoy those thirst traps, but like, I don't want to have a relationship. I wouldn't want to have any kind of relationship with her other than hitting that shit behind closed doors. You know, I don't want to be seen in public with her shit because it would become a circus. She keeps everything close to the vest. So she's either a closeted gay woman or misandrous, and both, or she's just like an uptight woman and shit who's probably been through a ton of shit considering who her mother is. Who knows what her personal life experiences is or how she grew up in that. I'm not interested in that. I'm only interested in tapping her big fat ass, okay? And we have to be honest with ourselves dealing with this shit. You know, there's a point where you start hating yourself for playing a role for some draws and shit. And we live in a different world now. It's a globalized sexual marketplace, and I would behoove you men to take advantage of that. Okay? I'm just being honest. I'm speaking to you as a regular guy, not a paragon of virtue and shit. I'm not holding myself above the crowd or telling dick police at anyone. Okay? And I'm being quite honest and shit. Yeah, when if Michelle Obama want more people to watch this episode, just have a picture of a girl's ass in the thumbnail. Just have her standing up next to that shit. Then don't put her ugly ass face next to that, or the fucked up brother. Or they could put Tracy Ellis Ross, excuse me, could stand up and face the wall with her cheeks out, man, in a pencil skirt or some yoga pants. And Michelle Obama's head could be adjacent to her left hip, and that goofy, weird looking, really scary, creepily scary sus brother of hers could be on the other side of the fucking cheeks. Okay? And you wouldn't even see their fucking faces. All you would see is Tracy Ellis Ross's shit, man. Parts of me wish she would go the Lunel route and have her OnlyFans page for like half a year before it crashed. Alright? Man. Unapologetically masculine. I admit to my male gaze. I'm not ashamed to be straight or anything. I'm very open-minded. And, I believe in being real about things. Okay? It ain't about no hate or nothing, but, I call bullshit when I see it.
The Black Patriarchy. A non-existent group of fictional black male power brokers not discredited, erroneously jailed or outright killed by the minority majority who look the other way as they work tirelessly to shame, oppress, and outright take out the altruistic black female populace of the honorable democratic United States of America. 3K's inset bitches. These evil wealthy members of the black patriarchy are the sole reason for all the ills of the black community, walking, talking, holding down jobs, and doing everything up to and including giving their very lives in service to their baby mamas and baby's motherfucking kids. Their motto that strikes fear into the hearts of black women everywhere: bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks.